o marang moula mayap aungil madangali arngula bela
Ungil silse kumal masaul guk nolungul tilgibel mutul mermange isal momes en guk namoria ngodel lokya karanga krelang guk model guest tial aldul de boringia adiratak ngaringi ira alme aka kalmerkologi meragak nangrap tokol aldul rabuaira radio ma tv ma segada dingaringa igel bebira aldul tasis beringi modakdo dengel waseka makarang meng momes tiang ngaria a special prosecutor April CRIPPS menggal assistant ringil dingil dulu akle mal kemangat di adra Fiji ma gal SEMDIU DECHERONG ngartiang tiang ulum mal kurawa kusoder ngi ngang ul tutak renggang temlora court itu gongel waseng ka gilingel wasa at lemal lengarnya di reli ilmu ulm no sebel mok waseng lo dialsis ra kalbus indi ngaria blo reli toy ilnya mal ngot al toy edirek tial loru ringil merma rabuain ma edu rabuain me masao da tial teletael adirek mal bes toy gatal kisang mengakmo ngutial te alle olingitra SEMDIU mo smoothie tel program ngaringi ngai gidan redilo tutak ngai ngelo tutak ra kamiu le malmal la ra kablement mato ngai gidan ngelo toy kamiu elang marara next month ngai gidamo o teringi magdingul metiang e ole SEMDIU kam sodi tiang ba marada aslo mesel wasem o kam smoothie to ko marada mo tiang ranga mo lingi teringi mo
malungit daw nga ka kaya SEMDIU DECHERONG di nga kam uuhi mari for 49 at elang ngariar amatang alakakal lakmle Executive Commissioner Financial Institutions Commission ako lumo Ulersel Office along alaringil 19 and a half years malkamangal time marangalige ka sirabok mereka lawyer rangalige ka 20 decree so the nestatra obis raw era volve el rangalige twins attracting utal opportunity tamo mesatera real makmal di ngedra adrablik the makmadalak marudak marangalakam a lot of them look up to me and I'm happy to be here to share my story. Kamle masa koram ni touched no talgibal small detail issue nga government official at the time I was charged. I was charged with among other things I gel baby charges giblom moriol girel mangwal blol drop mang di no driving under the influence of alcohol nga kada kula drugs ma da ulam marijuana ding man mlehido mlimarom so say yaul akno mlotutakl aknespendra one night tra blakalpus partra kalap singel tial talamal em no harawa igel talamal el kirul hara final morakorte etia yawal partra agreement tel kosak mo and it worked out elsa di kultur kara especially mas marubakal no ranks man klolat switch le ko bogo do to ko na marigel madirek arangal ge kam madangit to ko pela onding talibel biota so with that let me just switch over to English if that's okay. So this morning I'm here and I'm very happy to be here. First and foremost, I suffer from not suffer. I'm dealing with and I am continually working on a problem that I have that maybe other people are also having a challenge with, which is alcoholism. and I readily admit that I have a very severe drinking problem. As of yesterday, I have been sober, not a drop of alcohol, for a year and 7 months. In the beginning, it was very difficult. It was sleepless nights, and my mind going places I don't want it to go. Because physically, your body looks for the chemical, and then mentally, your mind and your feelings are looking for that soothing relief of the alcohol to put everything, make everything okay. That's not the case nowadays. I'm able to fully face everything and think things through, and thanks to programs that I was very fortunate to avail myself of and to be introduced to, I've been able to work through some of these issues of my drinking.
Is this like drug addiction?
It's an addiction of, it's addiction like anything else. Omalam is an addiction. There's people that are addicted to food, but addiction in itself, from my understanding, I'm not a clinical psychologist or a doctor or anything, but through my exposure and learning about my own disease, I want to make sure to explain that alcoholism is the same as if you had diabetes, if you had cancer, high blood pressure. It is a disease. It is classified by the American Medical Association as a disease. It's a disease of addiction. Mine just happened to be alcohol. And mine just happened to come out of a legacy of that sort of abuse of alcohol. I'll just leave it at that, because we Gida Arabella, all of us, I believe as islanders, we do have a very challenging time with our drink. You know, so so we went through. I was charged, and at first I was like, well, I'm gonna fight this because this is so wrong. How come all the other government officials that go drink and crash cars and everything get away, and why me? Because, you know, my previous job, I blocked a lot of things from happening because they were in based on the law at the time were not right. You know, I was a hero for truth and justice, you know, so I thought, right? But I came to the realization that, you know, I have to own up to my responsibility of what happened, because that's the only way I'm going to get past it and learn from it.
And we would like to go into it a little bit more, because to explain what happened in the beginning. I used to work very closely with SEMDIU when he was at the FIC, and when I saw that video that had come out, that went viral, right? I told him, I said, the first thing I saw when I saw that video, and I told him and as an attorney at the same time, is I just wanted to come and deck you. I said, because you just blew.
And by the way, that's across the street.
Right. You just blew it, because there were so many different charges involved. And so as part of what we do, our investigators pulled all the records to see all the things that had happened that night. And that included pulling the medical records to make sure, because he had gone to the hospital, because he had been injured at some point during the night, and pulling the medical records. And I asked SEMDIU if it would be okay to discuss that. In the state of Florida, I prosecuted DUI manslaughters and DUI serious bodily injury and DUIs for years. So as a result of that, you start seeing patterns, and you understand when you're looking at the medical records what you're really seeing. I realized as soon as I looked at the records and had realized how long he'd been drinking that day, because we had tracked him through the day and the evening, that most likely he was an alcoholic. and also looking at the medical records, his blood alcohol level after he had not been drinking for a few hours was still about 0.25, a little over that, which is almost 3 times the legal limit. And as a result of that, that's how we started thinking part of our job as a prosecutor and for our office is to decide what is the best way to proceed. It's not always ending up in a court case. Sometimes there's other avenues, and it's encouraged by the American Bar Association, which this country follows, to try to come up with a better way of making a difference in society. And so we talked with him. We talked with SEMDIU and said, look, I know I can nail you hands down in the court. That's not going to be a problem. But that's not going to really do any good for Palau. It seems to me it's very hard in Palau to try to get folks to speak out about some of the problems. It's more of a closed society. So we asked, would you be interested in not only being required to address your problem, face it and address it, but would you be willing to speak out to the public? Because it's one thing for me to come in here to this country and say, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. That doesn't, it's not very effective. It's another thing for Palauans to speak to one another and say, this is what happened to me, this is how I got where I am, and this is how it could be better. And he agreed. Thankfully, because I think we have already reached out to 3 schools. I think we reached out to Palau High School, Mincinti High School.
PME.
Yeah.
So you've talked to the students openly like this?
Right.
Wow.
And they have the chance to ask questions, and I can't say that it's an easy thing for him to do. I don't think it is.
You know, it's not very easy for Palawan men to kind of address this thing in public and admit. I mean, this is, we know, he knows, and we know that,
Right.
This kind of thing is, you don't, if you're a man, you don't disclose this kind of
If I may, NGIRMANG and Madam Special Prosecutor, going into this, there's so many things I was thinking of. My family, what they're going to think, my peers, my colleagues, my professional colleagues all across the globe, because I was fortunate enough to have a career wherein I made an impact not only in Palau but across the Pacific, and I earned a lot of respect for doing that. Respect that could be easily, thrown away by a simple act of stupidity that is based on a long-term affliction. And I really, one of the things I want to keep reminding myself on how I deal with people and how I learn to accept my mistakes and deal with myself is that, a moment, a video clip is not a definition of a man or woman. For that, how many seconds or a minute is not the story of their entire existence, what they've done good, what they've failed to do. It's just a clip. And in a way, selfishly, of course, I want redemption. I'm a human being. I want to show that I'm better than that. But all in all, the reason I really kind of came to grips with my decision to do this is that I have been exposed to other things, and I know for a fact that there may be other people out there, not maybe, there are other people out there, men that are older than me, women that are older than me, younger than me, same age, that are probably going through the same thing and don't know necessarily where to start, where to go, who to call, who to talk with. And so my thinking was, look, if I've fallen down this path and I'm down this low, I can't dig any, I've hit my bottom. It's only bedrock. I cannot dig myself at any deeper hole. The thing is, with that, I can maybe, my hope is that if I share my story and if I talk openly about it, yes, there is shame, there is guilt, there is humiliation, and there is embarrassment. I every day, yes, I have to deal with it. I have to deal with people looking at me the side eye and say, "Oh, that's the commissioner that fell from grace. He was so arrogant," and all. Those things all exist on a daily basis. But I can't do anything about that. What I can do something about is to be here today to talk about what I've been through and the steps that I've taken to try to help myself and those around me and be better for my children, for my family members, both immediate and extended, to gain the respect and the admiration of my nieces, nephews, my sons, and my parents, and those that I consider very important in my life. It's an opportunity to do that, but it is also an opportunity to show people that, you know, you're not the only one out there sitting in the dark trying to figure out, hey, do I have a problem? Why did I get into that argument with my spouse or my brother, sister, father, mother? How come I'm acting out like this? How do I stop? I don't know how to make people stop drinking. I don't. That's between God and them and things that they have to go through, right? But my ultimate hope in agreeing to be here today, because I could have refused and say, no, I'm going to go another route, is that if I just reach out to one or two people and they can hear my story and they can relate to what I've been through and say, look, I don't want to go down that path. I don't want to lose a career. I don't want to lose a wife, a home. I don't want to lose the respect and the good graces of the people in our small community. Then maybe I've taken this thing and helped somebody with it. Then it will be worth the pain that I have personally gone through over the last almost 2 years. So if 1-2 people hear the message, and to the Office of the Special Prosecutor's credit, in talking with the 3 high schools that we've done over the last year, you know, I'm so happy that I've gotten that opportunity, because some of them, they're my nephews and nieces, you know, and they actually were very happy to hear somebody openly talk about it. They see this is in our households, this is in okay, you die, there's drinking. You give birth, there's drinking. A birthday, there's drinking. Somebody leaves island, there's drinking. Somebody returns from there's drinking. So it's so part of so it's not part of our culture, but we've made it part of our existence, that, you know, for some of us we think it's normal. But you know, I would be the first to say, it's like, no, you know what, it's not. It's not normal to be drinking all the time and wasting our paychecks, whatever available that's not going to the loans for our customary obligations. Whatever's left over is going to be buying beer, right? That's the financial aspect. Sorry, I'm going in there because that's my profession. However, the kids responded very well, and I believe that they were just very, their eyes opened up, and then they were actually, I can't believe somebody's actually talking about this, because they see it in their homes. And they see that they have, it affects them, and they want out. They want to see it not be there anymore. So when I was talking to the 3 different high schools, that's kind of the overriding message that I was receiving from them as the audience, because they were happy that actually a grown up, I want to say I'm grown up, but I'm still learning a lot, right? I'm 49, but I'm still learning a lot about how to do things properly and be good to other people. But the overriding kind of feedback that I got was that they were very glad, and it was like an outlet. You can see them like exhale. It's like, wow, somebody out there is actually thinking and talking about this, because we see it in our homes, but we just stay quiet, and then the next thing you know, the kids are picking up a drink, and that's what I did when I was a teenager too. So,
and that's what we'd like to go into a little bit, to show your story on how you got to this point. So I know you spoke with INIA TIKOMAIMALEYA, our Assistant Special Prosecutor. So maybe you all could kind of go through that, and please jump in anytime.
do you have any questions?
Thank you. Good morning, Ali, and a very warm good morning to everyone present, Mr. ULUDONG, Mr. SEMDIU, and Ms. CRIPPS. I would like to take this time to also say Ali and good morning to our viewers listening in from the comforts of your homes. This morning, as our guest has been introduced, Mr. SEMDIU, we would like to thank you for taking the courage to speak up today on the addiction of alcoholism. You've spoken to a few high school here in Palau High School, Minsenti High School, Palau Mission Academy, as well as Palau Community College, in regards to the impacts of alcohol, how it had affected you personally and also your professional career. And part of the agreement was for you to do that. And today is your final opportunity to address the nation, our Palauan family, brothers and sisters, on how this has impacted you in your personal and professional career, and what improvements have you've got. Now, I'll be asking you a few questions. I have about 35 questions in regards to this case. Now, Mr. SEMDIU, I'll just take you back a little bit during your young days. How old were you when you started drinking alcohol, when you started drinking alcohol?
That's a question. I sought counseling when I went off island. That was one of the first questions asked by the counselor. I don't remember because it's always been there. I remember being 10 years old and sneaking drinks from the cooler on the boat, and because you're emulating adults, and then you have a beer, and at first it's like, oh, what is this? It's not soda. But then you feel kind of woozy, and it's like, wow, this is kind of cool. But I think
was this
by the time I was 11, I was in I was in high school by 12 years old. I graduated at 16. By the time I was 11 years old, I was already, we were sneaking drinks. My friend's parents had a store in Ngurbaev, and we would go get the vodka, small little flat bottles that you can put in your pocket. And we would go and get the coconuts and mix it. And
you were experimenting with alcohol.
And at the time, that's part of having fun, because we didn't have much to do, and it was kind of like, it's more the adventure of doing it versus the getting drunk,
I guess it's out of curiosity.
And then you see your parents do it. So if your parents do it and your uncles and aunties are doing it, it must be good. Although vodka tastes like, not.
So that's right. Thank you, Mr. SEMDIU. Now, when you had tried alcohol, what were you thinking? What came to your mind when you started?
I didn't enjoy alcohol until I was in college. Until I had real problems. That's when I figured out, say, hey, because I didn't drink until I was a junior in college, my junior year spring semester. And it was because of a relationship gone bad.
You had resorted to alcohol because of that relationship gone bad.
I have classmates from University of Guam that probably have pictures of, but that's when it really started, because when I was already getting in trouble by 12 years old, and thanks to my mom, who is an educator, decided to send me to high school in Oregon. So I'm a 12-year-old, going on 13, being a sophomore in high school in predominantly white high school in Oregon, where I'm the smallest person there and one of the only brown people. But the good thing about those small communities is they really looked after their kids, and there was like drinking was really not something encouraged. So when I graduated and I came back to Palau for about a year, I drank every now and then, but by that time I was keenly aware of because of things I've seen growing up within family and relations that I didn't want to drink like that. Unfortunately, knowing that you don't want to drink like that, that you want to become that, and having it already deeply ingrained in your genes, right? So you're like, I even took AA classes when I was going to college and learning about the disease, and it's like, oh yeah. So every time I drink, I'm like, okay, I gotta be in control. I gotta do this. But it doesn't work that way for people who are. I think the word is predisposed to addiction.
Right. Now, Mr. SEMDIU, did you ever think that you might be addicted to alcohol?
Oh yes. For a long time. Where yes. Definitely.
Did your family members know that you were drinking?
Everybody knew I was drinking, man. Because I was the best dancer after I drank.
So my next question is, did you know other kids your age were drinking too?
Oh, we were drinking together. When we ran out of coconuts, we would run down, put little shirts over our heads so the neighbors won't know who we were, and then just run down the hill and pull the sugar cane so we can chew on the sugar cane and drink the vodka.
What was your...
I'm not going to name names because they're all very professional.
We'll keep that for later. What was your behavior when you drank?
My behavior was professionally, I was able to... I worked at FIC for 19 years. And I was able to separate things. Maybe not when I'm off island because, nobody's there to see me. I can be a party animal, whatever, right? But still knowing I'm representing my country when I'm out and about in the different islands or countries. So I managed to keep that, relatively, sane and okay. Personally and at home, that's where the worst things happen. And it's hard to go back and think about it because, there's things that are unforgivable, man, that once, if you're in that state of mind, it's your first thought. You're not stepping back and say, what am I saying? What am I doing? And you can actually really hurt somebody because it's just instinctive. And the alcohol lets you loose. It's kind of like your ticket to do whatever you feel like at the moment. And that's a lot of damage to a lot of people, that mostly the ones closest to you.
Now, Mr. SEMDIU, at 11 years old, most of us weren't drinking or driving. But looking back, let's say from 11 to 14 or so, did drinking cause you to engage in risky behavior?
No, because I was sent away to this little ranch cow town in the middle of nowhere, so it was contained for a long while.
Okay, thank you, Mr. SEMDIU. After high school and you went into college, did you continue to drink?
Maybe it's because I was very much aware of the consequences of drinking growing up and seeing it around me, that I didn't really drink that much. It was really until I came to Palau, and I'm going to say this because my sons are gonna hear this, and their mom, of course. I took it very, very hard when I had to go to court. We separated, and I had to go to court to get custody of my children, and that's about 2006. 2006. I can really go back to that time where I lost my kids through a lengthy court process, and I didn't know how to deal with it appropriately. And that's, from my recollection, that's when things really just went really accelerated pace. Although during that time I was closing Pacific Savings Bank, I've closed several banks, I was doing all these things and raising twins. And so that was something, there's little events that sometimes, if for me, I wasn't able to deal with as in a way without having to drink my way through it. I never drank my way through performing my work.
Yeah.
Because that was, I don't know why or how I was able to do that. But for me, my work was excelling, but the other half of when I leave and close the door to my office and lock it, that was very lopsided in terms of how things were at the time, and for a long time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. SEMDIU. Now, Mr. SEMDIU, would you recall the first time that you drank and drove?
Oh, gosh.
Isn't that most of the time?
Most
You
of the
drink,
time.
yeah.
Yeah. So let me give you story. I mean, from when I was going to college and I come to Palau and I party, and of course everybody drinks and drives. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean I could have potentially killed somebody, but I still did it. But towards the later time, kind of a funny story, because I used to live up in Garard, right? And I would, at first it was like, okay, this is a 2-beer drive. So I get 2 Heinekens, and by the time I reach Garard, they're done, right? The 2 beers became 3, became 4, became 6 within a period of 2 years, because I lived out there for 2 years.
And during this period of 2 years, were you ever caught for DUI?
There were several times where close calls, but maybe they just decided to let me go because I was clearly inebriated when I was stopped. I'm not saying they didn't do their job. They were just being merciful to me and say, hey, let's follow you home. There are a couple of times where I actually went and parked my car in front of the police station and slept on the bench over there. That's really embarrassing. That's really humiliating for me in my position like that, having 2 kids and from a large family that a lot of people know, right? But it happened. I can't take it back.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about it.
that's-
But I made the decisions. Oh man, I can't drive. Let me just go park at the police station and just. So I told the officers, like, hey, I'm. It's like, well, sleep in your car and just give us your keys. And that was really good, you know, because I could have injured my somebody else or myself. But it's not something to take lightly, though, because just because you can make it home, you know, driving home with going like this because you can focus on the road, I did that, and I'm ashamed to say it, but it did happen, and luckily I survived and I didn't hurt anybody, and I'm here now talking with you about it.
Mr. SEMDIU, you graduated from college, you were doing well, you landed some really good jobs, earning more money than you ever did before, and then you returned to Palau and became the executive director for the Financial Institutions Commission. How long were you in that position before it all ended?
I was in there for 19 years. 19 years. I started the office. The office used to be in Miyun's. It was a conference table in the back of the office, the president next to the old FIB office. And basically they say, here's the law, here's a bunch of binders, here's an old computer. Make it work. So I had to build this thing from scratch, and I'm very proud of it because I think I left something that is resilient and is doing good for the public, and people in there are doing an excellent job, the board included. Not all of them, but no, I'm just kidding. It it was quite a task, and raising twins at the same
And how old were
time.
you then?
19 years, yeah.
How old were you?
Oh, I was 28 when I started the office.
And did you like your career?
I really, really enjoy the fact that I was doing something that ultimately benefited individuals. That was the most rewarding. I could have been making a lot more money outside of Palau, but my purpose at the time and what I wanted to do was to do something for here. And you know, throughout my career, I was offered at various instances very lucrative things, but you know, for me, it wasn't about the money. It was being in a position, not the title, but being in a place where maybe I make little changes here and there that, you know, it's paperwork. So people don't really see it. They only see it when they go to the bank and use their ATM, or when they go register a corporation, or things are working fine. Nobody knows that you were behind the scenes making sure that those things. And that was very rewarding. And it kept me, it kept me going for a long time. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. SEMDIU. Did you have a family?
Yeah, I mean, I still do. I mean, I didn't adopt myself out of it. Luckily, they still want me around.
And how about, did you have lots of friends?
I do have a lot of acquaintances, and through this, and you know, and things like this, when they happen, they really kind of downsize your friend list. I have a lot of Facebook friends. No, but it really shows you the family and friends that are really there to support you no matter what, and it's a good thing that sometimes these things happen.
Can we move forward a little bit to the night when all this came crashing down? I know when we talked a few days ago, do you remember much of that night or day?
That whole week was a real disaster for me because, you know, I was going through some personal issues, relationship-wise, marriage-wise. I was kicked out of my house. There was a temporary restraining order issued against me. They delivered it to my office, which was the start of the whole embarrassing scenario.
But as far as the alcohol, do you remember much?
So the whole week, and then towards the end, it was a Saturday, and it's like, hey, let's go to the Raka, and it's like, oh man, yes, I need this. As soon as I got on the boat, I started drinking. I forgot what types of drinks I was drinking, but whatever was in the cooler, you know, it for me, it got to the point of my drinking that, you know, if it's there, I will finish it. I can't just drink a drink and leave it there and then walk away.
Now, earlier you had said you had been drinking all day, and then you drank well into the night, because I know we tracked you past midnight at driving to different locations. At some point, you end up at the hospital.
Yes.
Do you remember them doing anything with you there?
So here's a funny thing. We were at Riptide, came back. I was drunk at the time, and then I asked to be dropped off. And since, you know, I'm like, hey, just drop me off at the office. I'll just sleep on the couch for a little bit. I left my FIC car at Riptide. And then I woke up, it was around 10:45, 11 o'clock, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Ironically, I was like, man, I can't leave the office car over there. That's a bar. Maybe they'll, you know, people get in a fight and break something. So I walked from here all the way down there, picked up my car, and I'm like, okay, good. I'm gonna go to sleep. On the way back, I'm like, I'm feeling a little bit better now. Why don't I just go check, you know? I wonder who's where. And then, you know, each stop, oh, hey, here's so-and-so, here's another drink, here's another drink, here's another drink. to the point where part of it, I remember having an altercation with some people that were driving behind me all the way when I brought the car over here, and the police showed up, and there was really no arrests. I got injured. I asked to be dropped at the hospital. They dropped me off and said, you know, so am I under arrest? They said no. So I'm like, so what? It's like, well, if they treat you, then you can go home. So early morning, I'm walking back like 4 o'clock in the morning. It was kind of rainy. And that stuff I remember. And I let somebody get to me because they found it a very opportune time to, you know, take out the old cell phone and say, oh, look, we got a government official here doing something stupid. And
there was a voice, you know, talking
yes,
to you
yeah,
from,
yeah. Well,
but you don't see the person's.
I know the person, and immediately the next day I went and I saw the people that there was some property damage and stuff like that, and I took care of that immediately. I didn't want it to, but unfortunately it's something that you know, the board of the FIC saw, and whatever resulted from that was what resulted from it.
Did you also, I mean, I know you gave me permission to talk a little bit about the medical. Did you know that drinking alcohol over this time period could affect both your kidneys and your liver?
Yes, I've known for a long time.
And did you know that based on what it appears, that there's a chance that those have been negatively affected at this point?
For the most part, I'm aware of that, and then I also know that it affects my heart muscles, and I am a recipient of an artificial valve. I had a surgery in 2018. I only managed to not drink after the surgery for a month. As soon as I felt okay, then I was back to drinking, which, you know, like God gives you a chance, and then you turn around and you're like, you know what? I can drink because I'm invincible. It doesn't work that way.
So I know that this has caused embarrassment, but it's also caused growth, correct?
Yes.
How, knowing that people are listening to you, and as you said, Palauan men, I would say men and women, having seen the worst side of humanity for a long time, how would you address folks to try, especially the young people? How do you get the young people to say, this is not a good experiment, this is where you can long-term end up? How do you get to those folks?
You know, honestly, I really don't know where to start with that. I am not here to offer real, like, I don't know if I can actually, honestly, I don't know if I can do that. All I know is that I hate being the one to serve as a bad example of what could go wrong, but, you know, these things happen. You can ruin careers, you can ruin relationships, you can injure people, both emotionally and physically, you know. At least show people, like, look, you don't have to go down this path. If you're already doubting yourself about, maybe I'm having too much, I can't quit for a whole week, what's wrong with me? This is where I would kind of like to start the conversation about, and then I'm going to skip just a little bit, because a while back I sought help at behavioral health. Because I couldn't stop drinking, and I wanted, but behavioral health, you go there, they're like, oh, that guy's crazy, and because of my job and my family, I didn't want people to think that I had some sort of severe mental disorder. If they had a different sort of setup where, like, look, we're taking in people that are suffering from, you know, drinking or drug addiction or something like that, that is, and I'm maybe leaning towards into some policy issues here, but, you know, rightfully so, because I've been through it, and I believe I know what is needed to an extent, you know. If they had better facilities and stuff that would accommodate you and bring you in, and it's like, you know what, there's really nothing wrong with you, this is a disease, you can come here and we can help you, instead of like, yeah, do you give him the blue pill or the red pill because this guy is kind of teetering on becoming crazy. That really deters a lot of people from seeking help. So I'm with your original question is like, I really don't have the answer to. All I can say is don't be like me. There are alternate paths, but my biggest concern is I can't be saying there are alternate paths when there's no open doors for people to say, look, I can call an anonymous helpline and say, hey, I'm really going through some things. I either need to talk to somebody, I need to figure out how to stop because I can't, whether it's meth or alcohol, I can't stop myself. I'm wasting all my money. I just got in a fight with my spouse or my relatives or and this is what's happening. And because people, for me, in going through this, I've really come to realize that we really have no outlet. We cannot talk to anybody because the shame and the thing with us Palauans, like we keep our stuff in-house, We don't talk about it because, you deal with your own things. But something like this, that you can't keep something in-house that when your neighbor has the same in-house issue. Why don't we get together as neighbors and say, hey, you're going through that, I'm going through that. Maybe we can help each other.
And maybe that's the question that I would like to pose to actually also you, Moses. I mean, you've been here your entire life almost. While there may not be governmental programs, what can be done within this culture to help, especially stopping the behavior in the young people, so that when you get to be an adult, you don't have to go through treatment or seek alternative. If there's a better way to address it in the beginning, what can be done? Because you're a father, right? And you're a father. So what would you all suggest?
Well, I think it's this experiment. I see this as because I have never seen this, where you come out publicly and, as a man, as a, Palauan, you keep things inside, So I think we're going through, social change. And I think society, let's take this internet stuff, in the last few days, we kind of almost went crazy because you get used to certain things and then you're exposed to so much new things, experience. You deal with different people every day that we were not dealing when we were growing up. So I think it's, to me, it's, if we can open up, I think we really need to do this as like a family, as a community, to do this because we don't have time to talk with each other. Kids deal with this thing every, even meetings, and you go to family gathering, you go to funerals and all that. People, instead of looking at each other and talking and deal with the problems we have. So I think it's and I'm trying to do this with this program, to open up, and I always say this every start of this program, that you need to know yourself, you need to know your society, you need to know your government, you need to express yourself. You need to express you, especially on matters of, and Palauans, when it comes to politics and public stuff, you're very open and we argue a lot. But when it comes to like this kind of thing, then you close up. So I think it's, open communication is very important. And I think we need to kind of have a social reorganization. And like in the old days when we were young, we were, I was in Vicente when I started drinking. It was 7th grade or 8th grade. We hike, we go to the dark in the bushes, and we drink with moripet, But we always had that group of like kids. We get together, and we talk and we drink together, or we go fishing together, or or we sit in the boathouse and then talk about the elders come in and they talk about elder stuff and they teach you how to be men, all this stuff, and then I think those kind of organization or groups no longer exist. So we really, we don't have an outlet. So I think it's, I guess, the community leaders, the social leaders, and the leaders in the community. We need to kind of develop, a new kind of organization or new ways to get together, new ways to open up. Because otherwise, it's and now it's with this little machine we have in our hands. I don't know how this can be done. So I think the more public program, with schools and with people with your experience, because this is very unusual. I have never seen this. And I know you're my relative, so on your father's side, I know you're connected to people in high places before. And I mean, it's the shame, kind of embarrassment. How do you deal with your uncles, with your relatives, with this kind of, with the community, It's unless you open up, and I guess you're the first one in my life experience to come out and do this. But I guess being the wrong, I can understand that. Being from Alap, you guys have history, So, I think it's something that we really need to open up and address, And I guess the best, like church organizations and community organizations are the ones, because it's kind of something you cannot legislate. You don't enact law to do it.
May I interrupt, NGIRMANG? Just from this last almost 2 years, individually, like for me, if I'm on Facebook, you can call me. I have 2 ears. I might never have a solution for you, but if you find yourself going through a similar thing, then the story of what I've given so publicly and embarrassingly and all of that, and you can relate and you wish to kind of reach out to somebody, hey man, give me a call. At least the least I can do is listen. The least I can do is say, hey, I was in a similar situation and this is what I did. I'm not saying it's going to work for you, but maybe you can take in and say, and then kind of steer yourself in the right path. Because at the end of the day, this disease is really something you battle on your own, in your mind and in your heart and in your soul, because it requires a lot of spiritual things to be sorted out. But what I'm trying to say is, I'm not saying, oh, the community has to do this, and you're right. But individually, if you can just take time to listen to somebody, because sometimes, you don't know, but sometimes somebody really just wants your attention to hear them out. And you don't know how, because it's happened to me, how much that means to somebody for you just to stop and listen. Not say anything, but just say, hey, I hear you. I recognize you're there. I see your pain. I'm trying to understand what you're going through. I might have something to offer that you can use, but if not, I can continue listening and maybe find somebody that may be able to come together and help you. But the thing is, we're also afraid to ask for help in these kind of very personal things.
Yes.
But I mean, for me, going forward, I really, policy level, there's a lot of things that but government cannot fix things like this. But when we do have the Asil Belao Women's Conference or the Men's Health, I mean, and I'm willing to go and talk to people just based on my experience. I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a counselor. But I'm willing to share my story to see if it helps somebody. So those kind of gatherings, because it's okay it's okay for me. I don't know. Other guys may think, oh man, I'm too macho for this. I don't have a problem. Yeah, you're there talking about it because you're a wimp. You can't handle your drink. No, but you're right. I can't handle my drink because I'm predisposed to not be able to handle my drink. and other people drink normal, and I'm jealous of them because they can drink 2 drinks and then walk away, right? Not me, and I'm just talking about me. But maybe there's other people out there that are similarly situated that can learn and maybe see what they can pick up from this kind of sharing. So
and we
thank
heard
you.
Just the other day, after his first, when we met with Minsensi High School, I think that was the first one, someone came up and told him and said, you know, you saved me. I listened and heard what you said, and if I drink now, I stop. I don't get drunk. I don't go to that point. I just don't want to go down that road. And because of your speaking out, it's made a difference. So I think our goal was never to embarrass anyone. Our goal was to use what could be a negative experience and turn it into a positive for Palau, so that it gives an idea of maybe where you all would like to go in the future. Because we do hear almost or see in the paper people crashing their cars, people getting killed, people getting hurt. This is something that can be addressed, but it's not going to get addressed on its own. And it usually, you're right, government can make a law, but it's not going to stop it. It's got to stop within the culture and community.
Yes. So we're coming to an end, and we have discussed this issue for about an hour. It's a serious problem. It's like a case of suicide that happened a year ago, that we came here and we had a public gathering to address it because it's serious. This one, and like the drug addiction and people getting busted and jail. It's I guess there are new challenges that we face, and in the old days there were problems, but not of this nature and not of this severity. So I think it's just incumbent upon us, as wherever we are in terms of this community, the society at different levels, we should do what we can. And I think it's. I always believe that openness, honesty to deal with it, especially individuals, to their colleagues, to their family members, parents, and we have to address it. Before more people get hurt. So I appreciate this, something that you came, because I must confess, at first when you made this deal, and I said, this is fixed. SEMDIU is connected to people in the high places, so some people have moved. And I really did not understand the circumstance that led to the deal you made with him, and then to get out of prison, because this guy should have been in prison, even though he's my relative. But this is because that video, and he was really, he was, I would say, in the middle level kind of management, government leaders, and he did something with that outfit.
It could have been worse.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but. I'm glad that this thing happened.
So, just something you taught, and I just really last time to interject here. You said honesty and openness. So there's one more thing that I want to add to that. So be like open-minded and receive people for what they're going through. Try to understand where they're coming from. Don't be too quick. We're very quick to judge somebody. We don't know what they're going through, how their day is like. Yeah. Already, it's like, that's not true.
Like, I'm a newsman. I said, this is not right.
Yeah, and we're human beings.
This is fixed,
Right.
Yeah.
And we're human beings, and I don't expect, people to be, but like the openness, open-mindedness, the honesty, not just with other people, but first and foremost with yourself. Right? To say, hey, do I think I have a problem? And can I stop for 2-3 days and not be upset? And then, because when I stop, I remember when I stopped drinking for a couple of days, I get irritated, and everybody else around me is, I hate everybody, and please don't be don't come next to me, right? So openness, honesty. But the last thing that I wanted to add to your words, Rubak, was willingness. Willingness to take those steps, to willingness for me to be here and further, whatever, however people take it. I'm fine with being here and talking about it. It helps me more, and then at the end of the day, I'm hoping it helps others at a great cost to me personally. But if that's what it takes, then at least I'm doing something right and something good for people, because this incident, I believe, had to have happened to save my life, and then hopefully to save others if they pay attention, not pay attention, but if they can just hear me a little bit and take what I've gone through and say, okay, hey man, it can happen to anybody, rich, poor, old, young. It can destroy you. So that's all.
Okay, so I guess Miss CRIPPS, you are going to leave us in a few days, so this may be your last program, and I guess you've done a lot of things in the last 5 years. You put some people in prison. You've some people, you made this like him, and then they're okay now. So what's your last word of wisdom to the public in Palau, because they probably will not see you until you leave. So
probably.
Yeah.
I guess, especially in the last few days, because we just had an outreach with the youth a few days ago, and the one thing that they said kind of mirrors what you're saying at the adult level, is that the kids in schools have been asking for mental health counselors because sometimes they just need to talk about, especially, and they brought it up, about the suicides and all the problems, and there's no place for them to go that they feel comfortable. They don't always feel comfortable talking with parents. I think all of us kind of felt that way growing up. And now you're saying at the adult level, when you're trying to deal with some of these same things, there's nothing really that's there. So it seems to be something that needs to be addressed all the way along. And if it could be, if you could have those counselors in school, if you could have a counselor at an adult level where it's not a stigma against you to go in and talk, I think that would help Palau move out of some of the addictive behaviors that are taking place, meth now, alcohol, suicide. It all kind of flows together. So if we could address that in Palau, I think that would help Palau a lot. And I'm hoping the last 5 years with our team has made a difference. Sometimes I wonder, but you don't know even today whether what we're going to say or do makes a difference. Maybe it's something in the future that somebody hears or remembers. And I just hope that we've done well by Palau, and I hope that our office is able to continue in the future and continue the work that started long before I came here. And I have to thank you, Palau, for inviting me here, and thank you, SEMDIU, for your courage to come up from today.
Thank you, INIA. Thank you. Oleh SEMDIU, msulang. Tial melaringi ngigel kamiul maas marubak loreng semau ke adam lo sebil maka besel toy tiga gisang ngal leta salid ngal gendra SEMDIU mleto bertial kudumdengli sel time ra aldo bertial ke isang lebe na front page na newspaper mlaringi aisel marana blue membring el toy ngada tung lelo sem ngarbabal ate edire kal ngarngiar adal ngarbabal adma klib lel ma adal or bugul waya way gamamar bibira mal membring ringi ngagi del tilo ringi musabel malung yarmut lo mesengil malung ila ma madal ay ngam lo ngam le dibus makatek mak mungkal buy gamla iwo ul murkel mo marterngi alu bangkai del gomlak pa mengagi del lame amat ko mildung maulda sulga adangalo arbe bulate pel ego sel sebem ko ngurni muspe ngi amurni indi especial adam maradil man ngasal mla aklangar tira mla sois ra waitia gel toy asbe sek makada magrar ela Nagil ko sukum ngari om ngilar ti aladu so ilmu sukumi ngi mar bibir kami marang lagi may kang malungil. Komando masaul di lang lang akti amal wasin mo dia asbedel malagi agel mal mal mga tete ako makai mong akti mo das wasin mo sibil ngari om ngaringi komal misulang.
o marang moula mayop au ngil madangali arngul belaw isay yaul akmul mogon